Rose, what are you doing with your page? You took off the lingerie post, the laundry room dancing, a ton more. The apology to Ryan, poof, that's gone. Remember that? 44 days left of parole. Are you trying to reshape your image? Do you think we forgot? Girl, we didn't forget none of it. None.
And when I mean sacred, I mean that there are very few people I trust in this world.
Gypsy Rose Blanchard's once promising second chance at life has spiraled into a public disaster, and it seems like the dream of a fresh start with Ken may be slipping away faster than anyone anticipated. After years of suffering and struggle, Gypsy had finally come to the point where she thought she could rebuild her life, and she and Ken had planned a future together. It was supposed to be a redemption arc, leaving behind the trauma, starting fresh as a family with their baby, and creating a home filled with love and stability. The plan seemed simple and beautiful. After Gypsy's parole ended in June, she and Ken would finally move in together. They had been counting the days, excited about the prospect of a new beginning. A shared home, a new chapter in their lives, free from the shadow of the past. But now, that dream is rapidly crumbling, and it looks like the very foundation of their relationship may have been shattered beyond repair. The unraveling of their future began with Gypsy's now-deleted apology video, which was meant to address her complicated relationship with Ryan, the man she had just divorced. In that video, Gypsy admitted that, after giving birth, she felt completely abandoned by Ken. She described how Ken had become distant, and in her loneliness, she reached out to Ryan. She said she felt emotionally neglected and turned to her ex-husband for support, as if that was somehow justifiable. This public admission wasn't just a minor slip, it was a huge breach of trust. Gypsy openly acknowledged that she had crossed a line, but instead of owning up to her actions, she framed the situation in a way that cast Ken in an even worse light. This wasn't just an innocent oops moment. Gypsy's message to the world was loaded with blame. She made it clear that she felt Ken had failed her emotionally, implying that if he had been more available and loving, she wouldn't have reached out to Ryan. This wasn't an apology, but a justification. She positioned herself as the victim, the one who had no choice but to seek comfort in her ex-husband because Ken hadn't been there for her in the way she needed. She didn't take responsibility for her actions. Instead, she framed them as a natural reaction to his emotional neglect. This kind of blame shifting isn't just a small issue in a relationship, it's a deep cut. It's a manipulation tactic, one that Gypsy used to divert attention from her actions and focus it squarely on Ken. Instead of acknowledging that she might have been wrong, Gypsy portrayed herself as the one who had been pushed to the brink. And Ken. He didn't defend himself, not a single word. The silence that followed her video was deafening.
Her and Ken have trust issues. Gypsy Rose said in her apology video that her and Ken were distant for a couple weeks after she gave birth. So she reached out to Ryan for emotional support because Ryan was her comfort.
What's really tea? Gypsy, what's going on over there? I thought Ryan knew better than that. I don't know. Let's not, I'm not assuming that, and I'm kind of, but not quite, because I don't know what's really going on. I don't know what's tea.
Gypsy has a conversation with her parents and tells them that she basically wants to go meet up with Ryan with Aurora to do a paternity test. Then she tries to have a conversation with Ken about this, and Ken is not having it. Ken tells Gypsy that if she goes and meets up with Ryan Anderson with Aurora, he will move back to Texas and file for custody.
While Gypsy laid out her side of the story, Ken stayed quiet. No public outbursts, no calls for an explanation. Just silence. But that silence? It spoke volumes. It wasn't peaceful silence. It wasn't a sign of resolution. It was a silence born from disappointment. Ken didn't speak because he likely knew that no matter what he said, it would only fuel the fire of blame. At that point, silence was the only option. He stepped back, emotionally and physically, and his withdrawal might be the beginning of a much bigger break, perhaps even the beginning of him stepping out of the relationship entirely. What's even more disturbing is how Gypsy used the apology video as an opportunity to dig into old wounds. Instead of focusing solely on her mistakes, she took the chance to bring up Ken's past missteps, specifically, the time he left her while she was incarcerated. This was a painful chapter in their relationship, one Gypsy had previously claimed to have moved past. But now, she was using it to justify her actions. She made it seem like Ken's past failures gave her permission to turn to Ryan. This wasn't just an explanation, it was a manipulation, a way of rationalizing her behavior by saying, well, Ken hurt me first. This wasn't just about explaining why she reached out to Ryan. Gypsy used this as an opportunity to air out her grievances in a very calculated way. She framed her betrayal as a reaction, as if her emotional needs hadn't been met by Ken. She didn't just cross a boundary with Ryan, she used her actions as a way to strike at Ken, all while making it seem like she had no other choice. It was a clever, though deeply flawed, attempt to justify her behavior. Ken's response, or lack of one, has been telling. In the face of all this, he has remained eerily quiet. Some might see this as an attempt at peace, but it's not. The silence isn't about letting things settle, it's about emotional exhaustion. Ken knows that anything he says at this point could only make things worse, and so he's chosen to say nothing at all. But in doing so, he may be signaling that he's done fighting for this relationship. The silence could be the beginning of his emotional exit, a step back that may eventually turn into a full retreat.
Gypsy Rose and Ken Urker are on the rocks. Well, this is alleged. She's basically saying, Ken, it's not me, it's you, via social media reposts. This post basically speaks about women reacting out of pain, feeling disrespected, and feeling unseen. And while those feelings are valid for a lot of women that see posts like this, that is not the case for Gypsy Rose Blanchard. She is using that to dodge accountability and put the accountability on Ken. While I don't like Ken, I do feel like Ken has taken a lot of flack for her. And for her to repost something like this, knowing that the internet's watching, it is definitely to paint a picture of Ken to make him look bad. Now look, Ken is not a rock star or a nice guy in my eyes at all. But Gypsy is just as toxic as he is, and she is really trying to take away from the toxicity that she puts out there. And, you know, she's saying that he's basically she's ignoring his flaws. Girl, like, you didn't plot your mom's unaliving. And what makes it really, really crazy is that this is not healing. Girl, this is a lack of accountability with glitter on, basically. Like, you plotted your mom's whole assassination. Like, are we for real?
People have started questioning why Gypsy would choose to trust Ryan over Ken, given their complicated history. Gypsy's response to that question raised even more eyebrows. She admitted that Ken had hurt her in the past and that they had trust issues. But instead of addressing the core of those issues, Gypsy turned the conversation into another justification for her actions. She argued that Ryan never abandoned her like Ken did, and that's why she reached out to him. She didn't just explain herself, she used the question as an opportunity to rehash old wounds, to bring up Ken's past mistakes as if they were still a valid reason for her current behavior. This wasn't just a mistake, this was a pattern. A pattern of using past hurts as a way to justify actions in the present. Gypsy wasn't just telling her side of the story, she was rewriting it to make herself the victim, to place the blame on Ken, and to make her betrayal seem like the only reasonable thing to do. But in doing so, she may have destroyed whatever was left of her relationship with him. At this point, it's hard to see how Gypsy and Ken can recover from this. The foundation of their relationship has been cracked wide open, and the public nature of their struggles only makes it harder to rebuild. Gypsy Rose Blanchard's situation has taken a turn that no one could have predicted. If you're still holding on to old wounds from the past, still carrying unresolved pain, how can you possibly build something new with someone? How can you expect trust to grow in a relationship that's already been tainted by history? Gypsy and Ken's relationship is beginning to show just how fragile things are, and a recent emotional video from Gypsy might have just revealed the cracks they've been trying to ignore. In the video, Gypsy was visibly upset, but it wasn't Ken or their struggles as new parents that brought her to tears. No, Gypsy was mourning her ex-husband, Ryan. She spoke about him like he was still the man she turned to for support, the person she could rely on no matter what. Her words were filled with longing and sadness, and she described him as her safe space, someone who always had her back. The way she spoke about him didn't sound like a woman reflecting on the past, it sounded like someone still holding on to that old connection. And what about Ken? He barely got a mention. She referred to him briefly as "we share love," but there was no real emotion in her words about him. Imagine being Ken, watching your partner break down over her ex, talking about him like he was still the love of her life. Meanwhile, you're sitting right there, trying to make things work, but you're barely acknowledged. That's got to sting.
Her and Ken have trust issues. Gypsy Rose said in her apology video that her and Ken were distant for a couple weeks after she gave birth, so she reached out to Ryan for emotional support because Ryan was her comfort. In response to a video about this, GRB comments to To answer your question, it's because Ken hurt me in the past and we have trust issues. Ryan never left me like Ken did, so those lingering trust issues is why I said that. GRB has an excuse for everything that was done in a way to minimize it or try to explain it. It reminds me of this. This is another example when somebody brought up, why would Gypsy Rose send newborn photos to her ex-husband? He writes, because I wanted him to see her as a person, not just a name or a thing that he could play with to get views with his Am I the Daddy polls. It was for him to see her and feel compassion for a innocent, and it just cuts off there. In that video, she tries to appear that she is apologetic and taking blame for these things, but she's also minimizing them, deflecting them, coming up with explanations for why she did these things. And when she can't do that, there's a lot of we statements instead of I. It's we need to stop doing this. We both did this. We participated. And then there's the whole turning everything back around on him. So deflecting back on him, saying that he's changed. He's totally a different person now. He's into social media, and she couldn't even get him to post on Facebook before. Notice that too? Get him to post. But we'll talk about that another time. But we all know a person that's just like this, that always has an excuse for everything they did. They always have a reason. There's always an explanation instead of ever owning up to anything. And GRB, we know, is not one to take accountability. She hasn't in the past, she isn't doing it now, and she definitely won't do it in the future.
It's like Gypsy was doing this in full view of the world, and her message was clear. Her connection with Ryan was still real, and Ken was just the guy who was there now. That's not just hurtful, it's downright disrespectful. And it wasn't like she was just airing her feelings in private. This was all out in the open for everyone to see. It wasn't just a simple apology or an emotional moment about her past. It was a calculated move. Gypsy, instead of taking accountability for reaching out to Ryan, spun the story in a way that made it seem like her actions were justified. She positioned herself as the victim, someone pushed too far by Ken's emotional neglect. Her actions were framed as a response to his lack of support. Gypsy painted herself as the one who had no choice but to turn to her ex, as if Ken's past mistakes gave her a free pass to reach out to Ryan. Ken, on the other hand, stayed silent. He didn't lash out or get defensive, but his silence spoke volumes. It wasn't peace, it was resignation. It was the silence of someone who realized that no matter what they say or do, they'll be dragged into a cycle of blame and hurt. And that's the thing about silence, it's loud, especially when it's coming from someone who's been pushed to the edge. Ken didn't fight back, but maybe that's because he knows he's already lost the battle. Now, the damage has been done, and it's not something that can be fixed with a quick apology or a public statement. Ken didn't sign up to be a temporary fix for Gypsy's emotional baggage. He didn't agree to be constantly compared to her ex-husband, to feel like he was living in the shadow of someone else. He was looking for something real, a fresh start, a life with Gypsy and their child. Instead, he feels like he's constantly being tested and pushed aside. Nothing he does is ever enough, and that's got to hurt. Gypsy, though, seems to be rewriting her own version of events. She's used to playing the victim, crafting a narrative that paints her as the misunderstood survivor. But the more she tells her side, the more the cracks begin to show. People are paying attention now, and the story isn't as clear-cut as she would like it to be. Ken's not just some prop in her comeback story, he's a person who deserves more than to be a stand-in while she figures things out. Things weren't perfect between them even before all of this blew up. From the way they sat next to each other during interviews, avoiding eye contact, to the stiff, emotionless conversations they shared, it was clear that something was off. Their chemistry was nearly non-existent.
What the public might think, the public persona, and I think what gets to me, and I've vented this to your mom, is that you have your TikTok personality, and then you have the real Ryan Anderson. And those two are two completely different people. So when I see you on TikTok, acting the way you do, talking the way you do, doing your polls, that's not the man that I married. The man that I married went on Facebook once a month because I asked him to. You didn't do social media, you didn't care. It was never about the public back then. And it's so hard to see what you have become. So yeah, I get mad, I get frustrated, I get angry because I know that that's not you. Where's the person that came to visit me when we had an argument and I told you, don't come, and then you showed up anyway? Where's the person that was there for me whenever my parents were on the edge of a divorce? And Chrissy didn't pick up the phone for 3 weeks. And you were all I had. You think I forgot about that? I haven't. I hate that we keep doing this back and forth, trying to hurt each other, but we're not trying to hurt each other, we're trying to hurt each other's reputations. I hate the fact that we are trying to be at war with each other. But I know I just want the best for you.
It felt like two people trying to pretend they were in love but weren't really connecting. Gypsy admitted that after she got pregnant, the intimacy between them faded. The physical and emotional spark that may have existed before was gone. And when you're already going to therapy before you've even moved in together, that's a major red flag. They weren't just going through normal bumps in the relationship, they were trying to fix something that was never solid in the first place. Now, they're still attending events together, putting on a show for the cameras, but it's hard to believe it's real. It's as if they're going through the motions because they feel like they have to, not because they want to. Maybe it's pressure from producers or the need to maintain a public image, or maybe Gypsy just can't handle the thought of another failed relationship playing out in front of millions. So they keep up the act, pretending everything is fine. But Ken? He looks checked out. His body language screams distance, and his eyes seem to be somewhere else. He's there physically, but emotionally, he's gone. It's clear that he's only doing what he feels is necessary to keep the peace, but it's not working. This isn't a couple trying to make things work, it feels like damage control, like two people trying to salvage a public image that's already falling apart. This isn't just one single mistake, it's been a series of emotional red flags that Ken has quietly been holding onto. Gypsy's been breaking down in front of everyone, crying over her ex-husband Ryan, posting blame-laden quotes aimed at Ken, and bringing up old issues to justify her behavior. And throughout it all, Ken has stayed by her side, supporting her. But there's only so much silence one person can endure before it starts to feel like self-preservation. It seems that's where Ken is now, numb, detached, simply watching as things unravel. It almost feels like the only thing keeping him in this relationship is the cameras, the contracts, and the public image they have to maintain. But when the cameras turn off, the show wraps up, and the smiles fade, we might finally see Ken emotionally check out for good. If someone keeps showing you they're not ready to evolve with you, it becomes clear that staying only means losing parts of yourself. And Ken doesn't look like he's willing to keep shrinking just to make Gypsy feel better about her own struggles. So maybe the real ending to this story isn't going to be a fairy tale. Maybe it's Ken walking away for good, choosing his own peace and happiness over everything else. Do you think Ken's really done this time? Has Gypsy lost the one person who truly had her back? Well, there you have it, folks. Do you think Ken has truly reached his breaking point, or is there still a chance for him and Gypsy to make it work? After everything that's unfolded, it's hard to say, but one thing's for sure, Gypsy's got a lot to figure out if she wants to keep what she has left. Drop your thoughts and theories in the comments, because I want to hear what you think. Do you think Ken's finally done for good, or is he just biding his time? If you enjoyed this update, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more on this never-ending drama, because trust me, this isn't over yet. I'll be keeping an eye on all the updates and bringing you the latest, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.